full of outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. We are live coming at you. And for once in our lives, it's actually sunny. It's a nice sunny day this evening, so I hope you're enjoying that. And of course, the football. And we're hoping a lot of you don't like football, which is why you're here watching this live. But even if you're watching it back, we appreciate your presence. Thanks for joining us. This is a really interesting show because we're looking at a unified approach with computing and digital skills and how some schools are bringing those things together and making it work for their students and their staff. And this show is supported by one such organization that helps with that, which is Apps for Good. If you haven't heard of Apps for Good, in the build up to this show, I myself have ventured into the world of Apps for Good and had a look at what it's all about. And it's absolutely fantastic. Blown away by what is on offer from Apps for Good for your students. Essentially, they offer free access to computing courses, introductory computing courses. And the courses are for everyone and can be delivered by non-specialist staff as well. And they're fully equipped with the resources that map around the UK computing curriculum. And the students within these courses are going to develop all sorts of essential skills, digital skills, and they work in teams to produce an app. And during this show, we're going to explore the app creation, how these things are put together, and the importance of Apps for Good for schools in terms of what they're doing right now in the UK and beyond. So really delighted for this show this evening. And to add to this, we have a special guest host pulled from the TTR MVP archive, most valued player, over 100 TTR shows as host, Mr. Harry Waters. I haven't got a sound applause sound effect, Harry, but welcome back again for this. Really looking forward to hearing your dulcet tones.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I feel a bit like Backstreet as I'm back tonight, all right, and all of those things. It's amazing. I've even got my pin on. There you go. You have to zoom into that.
Yeah, that is old school. The old TTR pin. Goodness me. And the mug, which is an old school one. What year is on that logo on the mug?
This is TTR from 2021.
See what I'm saying? That'll be on the Antiques Roadshow before you know it, valued at £25. So
at least
they'll be like, wow. But listen, I'm going to hand over to you. Can't wait to check in with this show and watch it. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to you and we'll bring the guests on.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for having me. And thank you so much for joining us today. We've got Emma Darcy and we've got Leonie Malloy. I'm hoping I've pronounced your surname properly there, Leonie, because I didn't ask you before. I didn't know how I was supposed to stress the O or not. And then I started panicking and then hopefully I've got it right. If I've got it wrong, you can correct me now. So I am going to ask you to introduce yourselves, your roles at Denby High School, and strategies which guide your school and a multi-academy trust. So I'm going to start with, because you're closest to me, I'm going to start with Emma. If you could start with a quick introduction, that would be lovely.
Okay, good evening, Harry. Thank you very much. So my name is Emma Darcy. I'm Director of Technology for Learning at Denby High School. I've been in this role for the last 11 years. I wear lots of other hats though as well because I spent 10 years as Director of Tech for Learning for Chiltern Learning Trust. I'm also now a trustee for Apps for Good for the last just over a year. I also work for AI in Education as well as a workstream lead for them. And I'm also part of the Digital Futures group as well, supporting schools and colleges with developing digital strategy. So lots of interesting roles.
Wow. So where do you find your free time?
I tend to find that in my free time, I do a lot of the things that I do in my work time anyway. So learning about things like AI, spending quite a lot of time online, talking with other sort of, technical, nerdy people that have the same sort of ideas and backgrounds as me. So yeah, a lot of my free time tends to merge into my work time as well anyway.
Amazing. And Leonie, over to you. You're currently here for me. So
So I'm Leonie Malloy. You did get it right. Thank you. Most people murder it, but you did it really well. I am the head of Year 7 at Denby, which is why I'm here today, because what we'll be talking about later on is something we've rolled out with my year group. I trained with our trust as part of their training group a couple of years ago, and then work as a geography teacher and, like I said, head of Year 7 there. So perhaps slightly less qualified in the computing side of things and the AI side of things than Emma, but more involved with the rollout and how it affects our students.
Differently qualified.
Yeah, perhaps differently.
There we go.
Thank you.
So let's jump into this. I would like to say I am a big fan of both of your backgrounds as well. There's lots of green in there, and I'm a huge fan of greenery. I don't have any green behind me. I've just got a boring door and a cork board. So my apologies for that one. So I'm going to start with you, Leonie, if possible. I wonder. So I've known about Arts for Good, not for that long, but a bit longer than I knew I was doing the show for, which is great for me because I had heard about them before. And it seemed to me when I started digging deep, I was like, wow, is this too good to be true? It's so good. Like, it's brilliant. But I want to know how you involve your young learners, as part of the process for shaping strategies to make sure that you're delivering an exciting computing curriculum that appeals to their interests.
So I think when you talk about technology and you talk about especially apps, it's something that is going to motivate students no matter what. It's something they're excited in. It's something that they use every day. And I think before Apps for Good, they don't necessarily realise that they can have a direct role in that. So I think they're almost intrinsically motivated to want to learn about apps, and through Apps for Good, we can sort of channel that into something that's quite productive for them. Obviously, we've done the climate change topic, which we will sort of talk about later on. I think this is a key focus for us because of our sort of whole school sustainability strategy and whole trust sustainability strategy. And so the students are already very articulate when it comes to climate and very knowledgeable. And so there are sort of two main drivers there. You've got the tech side, and Emma always ties in lots about AI, and that really excites the students. And I think if we don't treat it as this black box that's quite scary, and we treat it as something that we can use and we can harness for good, so it brings in the sort of technology side, but it also brings in the climate side. And we kind of choose to do it at a time in our curriculum where they already have some digital literacy. So we'll spend a lot of time beforehand looking at e-safety and general digital literacy and digital wisdom and how to stay safe online. And then we can talk, the students can talk more articulately and more, they have a lot more knowledge about technology before we go on to talk about apps. So having all of that really empowers them and that motivates them, I think. Anything you want to add, Emma?
No, I was just smiling and nodding along, actually. I think you covered it really, really well.
For me, just thinking about it, if I brought this opportunity to my students and, said, hey, let's make an app. Let's think about what we can have in an app. They'd absolutely love it. They'd go absolutely wild for it. And it's something that you can kind of get into. Every school will have the ability to do this kind of thing. I've looked at some of the bits and pieces that we'll talk about later, and it seems incredibly accessible, which is one of the things that I think is a beautiful thing about it. And it really pulls the creativity from these young people, things that I would never have imagined, like particularly when I was their age. I would never have imagined coming up with something like that. So yeah, props to everyone on that. I've got a question for you though, Emma, if possible. I'd like to know what are the benefits and value that this can bring to a trust-wide course for students and teachers.
Well, I think Leonie's almost like touched on it already, and it's this idea about actually teaching students digital character. So you can sort of talk about Apps for Good and talk about it and make it sound like it's, it's computing courses for computing teachers. And it's so much wider than that, because you can deliver it as part of your computing curriculum. You can deliver it in lessons if you want to, or you can do what we've done at Denby, and you can do it as in a sort of period 6 after school time, or as an after school club. And the nice thing as well is that you can work across a range of year groups and age groups as well. I mean, originally we looked at it and we were thinking, oh yes, the Innovate for Climate Change course, for example, is more sort of a secondary sort of course. But then we had some amazing primary school teachers going, well, we want to teach this as well. And because I think you touched on it as well, Harry, the idea that we have a shortage of computing teachers. Sometimes it's difficult in schools to free up time to cover something like this as part of a curriculum that's already quite packed. But the nice thing is with the courses is that you can take them off the shelf and deliver them even if you're not a subject specialist, because everything that you need is already there, and you work through the course over a period of sort of about 7 weeks, hour once a week, and you're given everything that you need to do this. And I mean, I say this, when I first did my first Apps for Good course sort of 9-10 years ago, I'd never taught computing. I'd never created an app in my life. We got involved in the course because it was a chance for our students to work with industry experts from some amazing companies. But I was thinking, how on earth am I going to do this? But what was so lovely is that everything that you needed to deliver it successfully was provided. And I think that for a trust then, that's very appealing, because obviously you have a range of different schools in a range of different settings with students from different backgrounds, different challenges and priorities, but you can kind of adapt the courses to fit what you need and the skill set that you've got available in your schools. And I don't think there's many courses and things where that's the case.
And as a teacher, there's not much better than being given everything like all ready and prepared and ready to go. Where, now, I'm not saying the teachers don't have to work here. Of course, the teachers still have to work, but it's all prepared and it's all ready, and you don't have to go out and do all of this kind of extra research on top, because it's all been done and it's all been worked on before. Sorry, go ahead, Leonie. I apologise.
I think plug and play resources are like so invaluable, and because they're resources that you like you said, they've been tried and tested before, but they're also not created by teachers, they're created by experts. Not that teachers aren't experts, but the people who create this course are specifically experts in what they are doing, whereas our computer science teachers may have expertise in other fields of computer science. And I think to know that what you're giving the students isn't just a resource, but it's something that is probably the best quality resource they can get and the most up-to-date knowledge, without having to go on subject knowledge courses, without having to top up all of your curriculum areas knowledge, is really, really useful. And I think the children are only going to benefit from that.
And I think also as well, sometimes you're teaching things, you're in new territory, you're teaching things that maybe haven't been taught before. So for example, something like the Innovate for Climate Change course, where, even if like you're a geography teacher, you've got good subject knowledge about this sort of thing, you're suddenly having to teach it in a different way, and you're bringing in technology, which again, you perhaps wouldn't normally do. Another really good example is the new AI for Good course, because again, there will not be many teachers out there at the moment that are teaching about AI, even computing teachers, because it's not really part of the curriculum. So it's so helpful to have these resources that give you a starting point as well, and give you a framework to go, okay, so I need to cover this at this point. You don't have to map that out. Teachers are obviously very, very busy people with everything else that they're doing, and also to embed into that the idea of the students learning these really essential digital skills, which whether they're going to go on and do GCSE computing, it doesn't matter, that they're still going to need these core skills, which we often don't have time to teach enough in schools.
Yeah, they kind of get that moved to one side, for other subjects that have to be massively overtaught. Now, I'm not going to get started on that. We don't have enough time. So you mentioned briefly the Innovate for Climate Change. Now, those of you who know me, I am mildly obsessed with climate crisis education and the like, and I'm also very passionate about empowering students and getting students to use their own ideas and come up with their own ideas. So could you just tell us a tiny bit more about this course and what kind of is expected of the students and teachers?
I'll do the overview, and then Leonie can talk about exactly what that looked like on the ground for all those teachers that were delivering it. So the idea of the course of Innovate for Climate Change is that it teaches young people about climate change and sustainability, and why it's so important that we lead more sustainable lives. But one of the things that the course identified is that obviously there's a lot of fear around climate change out there, and for young people in particular there's a lot of climate anxiety, because they're often told how serious the situation is and how we have to make changes and we've got a really limited amount of time to do that. So we put a lot of fear into our young people, but then we don't give them the tools to do anything about it. So we sort of say, this is horrendous, this is going to be your future, and then we kind of step back and go, over to you, sort of thing. And I think what's so nice about the course is it goes, okay, so this is the situation, these are the challenges, but actually here's some things that you can do about it. And it doesn't matter what age you are, and it doesn't matter whether you've got digital skills or not, you can do something about this. And so I'll hand over to Leonie, and she can talk about what we did then with Year 7 at Denby.
So we sort of started by introducing or reintroducing climate change as a topic, and how not only how it can impact them, but how it'll impact the planet in the future. And also touching on like various aspects of climate change. I think when we talk about climate change, we so often talk about carbon dioxide, and that's pretty much where it gets left. And so, our introductory session was on wider topics than just CO2. So then what we did is we asked the students to identify a problem. And when we did this, the course looks at how all apps that they have on their phone are used to designed to address a problem or a need. And so we asked them to identify a problem or a need with respect to climate change. And then once they'd identified those problems, they then had the opportunity to go away and to research how they might solve those problems. So like Emma said, it acknowledged the fact that there is climate anxiety with children, and it did that quite sympathetically, but then it also empowered them, like I said earlier, to make those changes. And I think having that problem solving mindset and for our students, it is really young, it is in Year 7, is really important, because then when they go on later in school and later in life, then they have those skills, which we'll talk about later on, to address problems that face them in their day-to-day lives. So we looked at identifying problems and solving them, and then they built the app around that. So I won't spoil too much. I'll let Emma talk about one of our teams in particular. But they designed an app based on a problem that they had found with bamboo. That's all I'll say.
Oh, you're teasing. You're teasing there. You're teasing. I love this idea of the problem solving side of things, and handing it over to students, handing the, as you say, empowering students, because the best way to combat anxiety or eco-anxiety especially is through action, is through using your ideas. So, there is a question here that's popped up from John Sibbald. It says, great to hear about authentic outcomes. Could I ask, how are the digital skills categorized and how are they accredited? Oh, big question there.
That's a really good question from John. So in terms of like accreditation, there's not a formal accreditation for the courses. So what happens is obviously the students take part in the course. They've got an option to enter like the national showcase, and if they get through to that, they present their ideas to industry experts and things. But in terms of how the digital skills are categorized, it uses something called Skills Builder. So when you work through the e-workbook that comes with the courses, it very clearly maps out to you the digital skills that are covered, and what categories they essentially fall into. And what's nice as well is you can adapt the resources if you need to as well. So for us, one of the things we've done in the past is we've taken the courses as they are, but then when we wanted to introduce, so for example, like I say, this year we did introduce a little bit of AI as well, and discussions about AI when we were talking about digital character and climate change and the sort of apps that the children could make. You've got the ability to do that as well. So you don't just have to say, this is what we're going to cover at this point. You've got a lot of flexibility there to be able to adapt that as well.
That's super cool. And how does Apps for Good, so this is back to you again, Emma, if possible, how does Apps for Good encourage collaboration and enable the students to feel part of something bigger, like as a multi-academy trust?
in my experience, you know, like I say, I stepped down from the role this year, but when we were delivering this, you know, for starters, it's very hard to find something that is going to work for every school in your trust. You know, most things are quite specific, and so you can't. It's harder to do something that everyone can participate in. But the first thing was that, you know, was the idea about everyone or all the schools taking part in this one course, working towards this end goal of all schools, whether they were doing this with a whole year group like we did at Denby, or whether they were doing it with a small group of students, would give their students the chance to complete the course, to do the course, and to develop an app to you know, to address the issue of climate change. So you've got that collaboration with that. You've then got the opportunity that, like I say, you can enter the national competition, which is really exciting, and you get a chance to do that and to present to industry experts. But then we wanted to offer something else as well, in terms of actually bringing all of the schools and all of the children together to almost like show each other the apps that they made. And we also wanted them to be able to show them to some of these industry experts that perhaps they wouldn't get to engage with if they didn't get through to the finals of the national competition. And that was kind of how our Climate Change and Digital Innovation Summit came about 2 years ago. And the idea with this was that we would actually do this as a kind of showcase event where all the students, all the schools would have a stand, where they would have a chance to go around and see each other's app ideas. They'd have a chance to present to invited guests about what they created, and really get that sense of actually what being in a trust means. Because sometimes you don't get to go to events where you see all the other schools that are in a trust with you, but also so that you can see what you've all got in common, where you've got your differences, and that sort of thing. And one of the things I've always really loved about it, and we did that event again for the second time this year, is that you've got a huge range of people pulling together to make it happen in the first place. You know, you've got lots of staff in the different schools all putting the work in and working together to create this. And we've got local organisations like Luton Borough Council, for example, that support us with that and things as well. But you've also got this amazing opportunity for the children to talk to adults in a way that they perhaps wouldn't get otherwise. Because if someone comes around to your stand from Google and is asking you questions about your app idea, and you're maybe in primary school, that's giving you an opportunity that you're not going to have had in any other kind of forum. And when we first looked at doing it, we were like, oh, well, should we have something that's specific for secondary, something that's specific for primary? And we were like, you know, and we've got some middle schools and things as well. And it was like, no, we're not going to do that, because actually, just because you've got a group of students in secondary doesn't necessarily mean that their app idea is better or better developed than what the children in primary, and we've got a lot of very charismatic primary school children as well. So it was almost like that sense of community, that sense of collaboration, bringing everyone together on like a sort of a level playing field where they all get a chance to do that. And the other thing we did as well as part of that was to give everyone that visited the chance to vote for their favourite app idea. So the children would all present, and then the visitors had a chance to vote for their favourite, with basically prizes awarded to the winners. You know, and that was lovely, and that was really that sense of collaboration and community, and something really tangible. For me personally, that felt like a very, very important thing to do.
Oh, that sounds so cool. I want to go.
You come to the next one.
I got to go to the first one. I wasn't able to go this year, but the one last year. And I think just going back to what Emma said about the primary school children. So there were students, and obviously it was the first event, so none of the schools really knew what to expect from the other schools, what the competition would look like. But there was, you know, children in, you know, and our youngest students across the whole trust, all the way up to students who were 18 and about to finish their A-levels. And I got to go around each and every stall, and the way that the children were all so articulate all the way through the age ranges. I don't want to say it surprised me, because I don't want to underestimate children, but they spoke with such confidence. And like I said, they were so articulate about technology. And I think starting so early, like you said, Emma, there was times when, you know, you think, oh, is this more of a secondary school course? Is this something that we can roll out to younger students? But it absolutely is something that they can do, and they grab it with both hands, and they're so excited and enthusiastic to do it. It was just really nice to see. It made me almost want to go and teach primary, but I don't think so.
I love primary as well, to be honest. I'm a huge fan. And the creativity levels of a primary student tends to be certainly, you know, I'm not going to say again better than a secondary student, because we're generalizing. Exactly. Yeah. Usually by the time a student's arrived at secondary, had some of the creativity, again, not beaten out of them, but no, they've unlearned a lot of their creativity. So lots of those ideas from the really young learners can be, absolutely incredible, just so creative and so much fun. Now, I'm going to take this wonderful opportunity, a brief segue, to show our viewers and listeners, if they can, there's going to be a QR code that's going to pop up on the screen in just a moment. And you can scan this because Apps for Good give schools free introductory computing courses. The courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers. They're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculums. Students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create a prototype app for good. So go and check out appsforgood.org to find out more. You've already heard some of the amazing things that they can do, and you are very shortly going to hear even more of those wonderful things. So jump on over there. Oh, it's gone now. Now I'm pointing at Emma. I'm so sorry. I'm so rude. Look at the QR code. Give that a scan and find out so much more about how good Apps for Good really are. There we go. I apologise for pointing at you there, Emma. That was very rude.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
I am all the way in Spain, so I wasn't actually pointing at you. But anyway, so we're back. After our brief QR code break. And I'd like to ask a question to Leonie now. And I, as a teacher here in Spain especially, I see a lot of language classes, a lot of maths classes, a lot of science classes. And I'm not going to say they're not useful, because they are. I think they're fantastic. I think they all have a very important role to play. But they don't necessarily prepare people and students for life after school. They often prepare people how to do exams really well, but they're not necessarily building up, their career skills. So how does Apps for Good give students opportunities to aim high and broaden their career ambitions? So, specifically through industry engagement opportunities, but other things as well.
So I think your point about being very curriculum focused is something that's quite shared among a lot of teachers, and so we're lucky to work in a setting where we do have a really big focus on our personal development. Apps for Good ties in really well with that, because like I said earlier, previously from Apps for Good, we look at sort of digital safety and digital character. And then when we finish the Apps for Good course, we look at digital careers. And so it takes students, it gives them the knowledge, then it empowers them to do something about it. And then it shows them where it can go with that. So we kind of sequence it in a way that means that they're enthusiastic about it at the point which they learn where they can take it in the rest of their lives. And it kind of like consolidates that knowledge into tangible roles. So if you like this, you could do this. Now, obviously, we probably can't tell them every digital career that might be available to them, because they may change by the time they get there. But it's exciting for them to learn, and to start them off in year 7 is something that we look to build on each year as they go through secondary school. I think something that we do that encourages all of our students to aim high when it comes to Apps for Good is Emma's very good, and the rest of the trust are very good at showcasing previous successes. Because I think students so often see people perhaps on social media or on like more traditional media doing things with technology successfully, but they don't ever see students who they can relate to. So showcasing previous successes of secondary school pupils in our case from Luton, doing really well with Apps for Good, is something that encourages them all to aim high, because they can see that they can do it too. And I think like Emma said about our climate change and digital summit, it's something that they can practice on a smaller stage. And it's not, I think it's demeaning to call it baby steps, but it gives them somewhere to practice that, somewhere to take that. And then if they carry on, if they want to aim high, then they can. I think the industry engagement is you know, if you say a big brand name to a child, if you say an app that they use every day, then that's just going to excite them and it's going to make them want to impress. We had some students presenting to Spotify last week, and I think Emma will talk a little bit more about that later on. I don't want to steal your thunder, Emma. But every single time I spoke to any of the students, they name drop Spotify probably every 10 to 12 seconds because they were so excited about it. And, you know, you talk to other adults and they're like, Spotify. And you talk to other teachers and they're like, oh, Spotify. And I don't think anyone realizes how much that can do to motivate students and to make them, you know, aim for as high as they can. And I think it kind of takes away that box that students might say, like, oh, you know, I'm 11, I'm not going to be able to do that. And then when you put them on that platform and they absolutely shine, it just makes them realize that, you know, it's an age-old thing, but like the world really is their oyster and they absolutely can do it. And I think the industry partners work really well with the children as well, and they ask them questions that excite them and that they want to answer, and I think that really motivates them too. So yeah, I think it's really surprised me. There's a certain student in my year group that I'll talk about later on, and watching her go from when she first started in year 7 to where she is now, her aspirations have completely changed. And she's been, you know, an integral part of that has been her involvement in the Apps for Good course. So yeah.
Can I just add something onto that as well, Leonie, just in terms, because obviously having been doing the course for like 9-10 years, one of the things that is so lovely for me is that we've got students that did the course in like the first or second year, and I've been able to see what they've gone on to do now. And there's so many of them now working in the technology industry who, when they come back into school as alumni, will talk about, oh, one of the things that was really changed their trajectory almost was being involved in this little after school club that just made such a difference. And I also want to pick up on what you said earlier, Harry, because you said about how it almost sounds too good to be true. And that's one of the things that, for me, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to be a trustee, was actually you tell people about Apps for Good and they're like, well, hang on a minute, but how much does it cost? And it's like, well, it doesn't cost anything. And right, so let me get this right. So you've got companies like Spotify who will talk to your students and it doesn't cost anything. It's like, no, it doesn't, because for these companies, Apps for Good have got such an amazing relationship with so many technology companies, and these companies give back as part of their corporate social responsibility to work with schools. And that was one of the reasons why at Denby we got involved in Apps for Good in the first place, was we had the head teacher at the time felt very much that we really wanted to raise our young people's aspirations, and that the best way to do that was to actually get them speaking directly to people working in industries and roles that they perhaps hadn't got experience of before. But I came into this role, I didn't have those sorts of contacts. You know, I don't know people in these big companies. And again, that was something that Apps for Good brought to the table. And it's not that, oh, just you have a novelty call with someone. At different points in the call, you can request an industry expert to support and mentor your students. So we had a session done for us a while ago when the students were all coming up with an idea right at the start of the course, where Google delivered the session and talked about how you come up with innovative ideas. And again, that sort of direct, relevant, purposeful industry engagement is so important. And as Leonie said, it makes the children feel so important as well. The fact that these people want to stop, will take time out of their day and will talk to the children, that is really powerful.
I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. I actually have a nail handy for this one here, just by pure chance. The fact that they are, it's not that they're being spoken to by people from industry experts, is that they're speaking with industry experts who are also listening to them. Like, yeah, they're
guiding them, and they'll come up with ideas and they'll suggest something, and they'll get feedback, and and it won't be, because Leonie said, she was exactly right, that the way that in which the experts engage with the students is fantastic, because they're not patronizing, they don't talk at them. It's very much, right, so tell me about your idea, present to me what you've done, let's look at some ways in which we can improve this. You know, when we talk about marketing, let's talk about how you can market it. And again, what always amazes me is that, like, when you're giving children a chance to do this at sort of 11, 12 years old, what they then go on to do is unbelievable. You know, because it just gives them such a sense of self-belief about what's possible, that you then watch them go on and fly in other circumstances. Like I said, a lovely thing for me has just been seeing how many children have grown up to be young adults and have gone off and done these sorts of roles in the tech industry.
I just love the idea of it as well, and it's just harnessing creativity, and it's in an area that everybody knows and everybody cares about, because there isn't anybody I know that doesn't use, you know, at least 15 different apps a day. So like, it's something that is so relevant. And now, although that they are computing courses, you know, and they aim to increase digital skills, obviously these are things that are very important when you're talking about technology. I was wondering, in what ways do they also enhance the essential skills for students? I'm going to hand that one to Leonie, if possible.
So obviously, like I said, I'm not a computing teacher. I don't teach computer science. And so for me, watching the development of sort of these essential skills has been something that, you know, I've picked up on in our students and really seen the progression in them. And I touched on it earlier. There's one student in particular who, at the start of the year, they were extremely nervous. On their first day, I don't think they spoke a word to anyone. And as we sort of progressed in the Apps for Good course at the start, I'd noticed that the student was sort of saying hello to staff and other students a little bit more, and sort of seemed to, you know, I keep saying it, but seemed to be a little bit more empowered. And then last week they had a session with some industry experts from Spotify, and I wasn't there, but Emma informed me that the student ended up sort of flipping the questions round onto the industry experts, and so, you know, they've gone from really not having the confidence to talk to adults that they know well to asking questions that perhaps some adults would be nervous to industry experts. So I think, you know, her skills in sort of listening and speaking have come on such a long way, and that is as a result of Apps for Good and her involvement in the project, and how, you know, how far she's come with that. I think, you know, when it comes to their problem solving, because the course that we did addresses the climate change problems, it just encourages them to have that problem solving mindset in all things. So, you know, we've noticed that students are a lot more resilient and a lot more introspective in looking at how they might solve their own problems. Now, whether that's you know, it could be that they are just getting older, but I like to think that it's because they've had explicit education in problem solving. You know, staying positive and aiming high, we touched on that earlier on. It's something that inspires them to aim really high. And so, you know, I think their digital skills have come a long way, but I think something that I've noticed from a pastoral perspective with all of the students is that, you know, their sort of softer or essential skills have just come on leaps and bounds. And because each and every student has been able to take part, because the rollout was across the whole year group, is something that we've seen in all of them, not just in one or two of them. So, yeah.
I think...
sorry, I just remember something else I wanted to talk about.
Go.
They do at one point something called an elevator pitch. And so they will consolidate all of their ideas into a 1-minute sort of script. And what that means is that students are able to take all of the information that they've gathered and consolidate it. And that's a really, really useful skill. Because as they get older, they're going to have to do that as they progress into, you know, GCSEs and into the world of work. It's something that we all need to learn to do. And I think the elevator pitch is something that was really, really useful to all of them. And I'm glad that all of them had the opportunity to do that at the start of their sort of academic journey. Yeah,
I still can't do it. People ask me what I do, and I'm like, elevator pitch, come on, Harry, elevator pitch. And then I realize I just can't stop talking. So I'm terrible. Another thing that I've seen, like from the outside, it looks like it must really help, you know, collaboration and teamwork, because there is this, they come up at the end of the day with one idea for an app. Now, that has to be developed by usually more than one person, so there has to be one or two people there. You know, you're going to have to reach agreements in that. because maybe one person wanted to do something, you know, so you've got those problem solving skills, but you've also got collaboration, you've got teamwork, you've got all of these wonderful these softer skills, as we mentioned before.
I'm going to jump in there and say I hate that term, soft skills.
Sorry, I didn't want to say 21st century skills.
One of the things that I always push back on, just because it really annoys me, is when I hear people talking about soft skills, because I think if the educational landscape shows us anything at the moment with direction of travel, with technology and everything else, is that these are going to be some of the absolutely core skills that we're going to want our young people to have. And exactly as Leonie's been saying, you know, the teamwork skills, they don't always agree. They will squabble like mad sometimes about an app idea, but they have to reach a kind of consensus. And that, for young people, sometimes involves having some really mature conversations. The creativity of coming up with an idea in the first place, you know, the resilience when someone says, well, actually, that idea's already been done and it's not that unique, you need to do something else. You do. We talk a lot in school. We have our set of school values, the same as like most schools and trusts will have. But again, giving them really tangible ways in which we can talk about the school values. And when we talk about things like confidence and in relation to presentation skills, as Leonie was saying, with things like elevator pitches, it does give the students something, you know, that they can then properly visualize what they need to achieve and how they need to develop that skill, because they're working together. And like I say, I think they're developing the skills that are in some ways going to be some of the most useful skills that they leave us with at the end of year 11.
I think we should definitely stop calling them soft skills and also 21st century skills, because we're a quarter of the way through. Why can't we just call them super essential, really important skills? I mean, I think that works, rolls off the tongue nicely. You know, that's a new idea. So, a major challenge for schools and trusts at the moment and forever is budget constraints. You know, there's never enough money to do anything ever. So why is it important for teachers to embrace these low-cost solutions, Emma?
I think that sometimes some of the, and we've already talked obviously about how the fact that the Apps for Good courses are free of charge, there's no hidden catch, there's no sort of, you know, sneaky thing there. I think that sometimes some of the activities and things that we really want our children to be involved in are some of the things that goes by the wayside when there are things like sort of budget cuts and things. If you're struggling to recruit teachers, you know, if you've got lessons that are more challenging to deliver because of skills and expertise, sometimes things like sort of the extracurricular stuff becomes a nice to have rather than an essential, or that you're not able to deliver. But I think as well, it's sometimes as well, working in that situation does mean that you have to be more creative, that you have to sort of look at maybe your curriculum, look at the resources that you've got, look at your overall digital strategy or where you'd like to be in 5 years' time, and go, okay, how can I get there? What can I, you know, what do I need to do to achieve that? And sometimes you're more creative with that as a result. And I'm not saying that's an ideal situation, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that schools don't need more funding, but I think with something like Apps for Good, you can use it for a lot of different reasons. You know, you can use it to support delivery of elements of the computing curriculum. You know, if you are thinking about introducing digital skills, digital character, it fits really nicely with that. If you are looking at, and again, every school has got to have a climate action plan, a sustainability lead by 2025, you know, and the Innovate for Climate Change course fits really, really well with that. You know, most schools know that they are going to have to be tackling AI in some way, shape or form over the coming year. And again, it's like, where on earth do you start with that? You've got the AI for Good course, you know, some really good uses and things that you can do there. So I think in terms of like looking at what you've got on offer with Apps for Good, it's about saying, okay, well, actually, where could this fill some gaps for us that we've already got? Where have we got some things in a school or in a trust that we really need to be doing, that we've wanted to be doing, but we haven't been able to do until now? Where could this fit in? And I think that, like I said, it does. There's always excuses and reasons for not doing something. We can always say that we're too busy, or we haven't got the resources, or we'll make time for that next year or whatever. But I think when you've got something like this that comes with, so, and you know, you only talked about digital skills and careers, you know, if it fits in as part of your careers advice and guidance, you know, again, it will tick so many boxes for you that it's definitely worth spending the time and effort looking at the courses in detail and going, okay, so how could this fit in? How could this actually be a win for us, rather than something that's an additional thing that we've got to do on already very sort of loaded staff team in a school, for example.
I can't see any downside to it at the moment. I'm trying to think what would be someone's excuse for not doing it. And also to reiterate, yes, absolutely, loads more funding for schools, please. Even though this is free, we still need massive amounts of funding because we are grossly underfunded. So more funding for schools, but also this is free, so it's a great budget solution. Now, we've talked about some of the challenges that there are in schools. One of the big ones is the skills gap and a shortage of STEM subject teachers in secondary. This is something that isn't just in the UK, don't worry, it's here in Spain as well. It seems like a global shortage. So how have you approached this challenge, Leonie?
So when we deliver the Apps for Good course, previous to this year, it's been delivered by Emma to a smaller group of students. But this year we wanted to roll it out across the whole school. And so what we did was we enlisted some teachers. We have an additional lesson on a Wednesday at our school, and we call it Period 6, and staff sort of take turns for each department to teach it. So it's 45 minutes after school, and obviously it's not just going to be exclusively sort of STEM teachers. So the Apps for Good curriculum this year was delivered by a team of teachers across the school from mainly languages, humanities and creative arts, so media and music. So none of them were computer science specialists. None of them were any STEM specialists at all. And I think the reason that we were able to do that is because it really is just sort of a plug and play, ready to roll delivery. Everything is ready to go. It's accessible for teachers. It's accessible for students. We didn't need to differentiate it. We didn't need to take it apart and put it back together again. It was ready to go. And I think it comes in a way that you can add things in, but you don't need to take anything out from it. Something that really helped us as a school is that because of constraints on teacher time and things like that, what Emma did for us was she produced a series of videos so that each week before the teachers delivered it, there was just sort of a couple of minutes briefing video on what it was going to be, any potential issues, and any sort of identified sort of an FAQ section, anything that might come up as a question for staff and for students. So what that meant was that there was a seamless delivery from non-subject specialists on a really specialist topic. Now, I appreciate that not every school has someone like Emma who's able to produce those videos. I don't think they're necessarily a requirement, but it is something that really helped with our delivery of it because Emma had the experience of delivering the course in the past.
And I think
everyone involved. I love it.
I think like Leonie was saying, it's sort of the thing that the thinking behind getting all of Year 7 to do this year was the fact that we delivered Apps for Good for a number of years. It was always a cohort of between. We even delivered it during COVID in lockdown. We did it as a complete remote course. But the fact that we could only ever have a maximum of about 30 students doing the course as like as a club, and we said actually no, to take this to the next level now, we want everyone to access this. And our head teacher basically said, right, what would it take to have every student in Year 7 when they start with us do this course so that we can develop digital skills, they can learn how to use the different platforms and things that we've got in school. And I love the challenge, I'll be really honest, of having MFL teachers who at the start of the course were taking me aside in the corridor and going, you do know I've never created an app before. You do know this is going to be a disaster. And it's like, no, this is not going to be a disaster. You can absolutely do this because you're going to have the hand holding all the way. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the answer in schools is to take all your MFL teachers and make them computing teachers, because obviously your computing teachers are very, very specialist subject knowledge experts. But digital skills and the teaching of digital skills, we're finding is becoming almost like a whole school responsibility anyway. So actually bringing some of these teachers carefully out of their comfort zones and going, do you know what, you can do this. And like I say, I always come from a point of view of this is what I did to start off with. I'm not a computing teacher, it's not my background at all, that you can do this and we'll coach you. And what was lovely for me was some of those teachers then getting really competitive about the groups they'd been working with and how good the app ideas were that these children were coming up with. But we had a group as well. I mean, we've got I don't know if you want to say something about our SEN group, Leonie, that did the course at the same time as well, because we haven't mentioned them yet. So I'll hand over to you and you can just mention that.
So we had a group of students who access a slightly different curriculum at school, complete the course alongside the rest of the year group. And there was no sort of change required for the course for them to access it, because a lot of it, you know, it was pre-taught in our curriculum, so students knew sort of the vocabulary that was going to be used, and what that meant was that, you know, their aspirations have been raised, you know, we have that complete equity across the year group in that raising of aspirations for all students. And it was a really lovely moment to go in and to see students across the year designing their apps, and like Emma said, having those disagreements, having those conversations and working out those problems between them.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was so lovely. Cool. Really was.
And for everyone else who is listening and watching, there's a QR code that's coming up here. And remember that Apps for School is completely free with introductory computing courses. Therefore, everybody, as they've just mentioned, all teachers can do it. Any teacher could do it. You've got perfect guides to take you along the way there. Students will develop essential and digital skills, and not soft skills, obviously. Absolutely 100% essential skills for the future. They create a prototype app for good. So do go to appsforgood.org or click on this, or use your phone scanner for this QR code, or maybe just your camera, depending on what kind of phone you use. But go there and check it out, because it is wonderful, and it's also free, which I still can't believe that it's free. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. It's lucky I'm wearing a hat, because I think my mind has been blown, and this has contained it within the hat. I like you, Emma, also wear many, many hats. So I just want to, we've got 1,000, we've hit 1,000 live viewers. So thank you to everybody who's come along and joined us and being here. So Apps for Good have their annual showcase. Now, this is something that I've been, again, it was a wear a hat moment because of mind-blowingness. I'd really recommend everyone check out the People's Choice Award that's there. So tell us more about this. I'm going to open this up to both of you. Whoever would like to go. I'm going to hand over to Emma first, because Leonie spoke last. So yeah, tell us about the showcase and what is this online event and what are the benefits. And so I'm getting too excited.
Okay, so the National Showcase is something that happens every year, and the idea is that you can have been doing any of the Apps for Good courses. So you could have done Innovate for Climate Change, you could have done App for Social Action. Like I say, from this year, you'll be able to do AI for Good as well. And then if your students have created an app idea, they can enter it into the National Showcase. And basically, there's an online form, just captures some very simple details about the idea. That the children get to submit things like they have to have created a 1-minute elevator pitch. So they will have created a 1-minute advert for their app, and that can be either the students just talking to camera about their app, or it can be something that they've made. Our students this year had to go at making elevator pitches with Canva, which was great. And then they enter that competition, and they find out a few weeks later whether or not they have been shortlisted to be a National Showcase finalist. And if they are shortlisted, they then have the very exciting news that whoever is their category sponsor, and bear in mind there's some big name companies sponsoring these categories, they are going to have the chance to do a pitch to representatives from that company in a kind of Dragon's Den type setting. So they will have sort of 5 minutes to actually present their app idea, to talk through all the different aspects of it, and they will then be asked a series of questions by the judges, and they don't know what those questions are going to be in advance, so they can prepare up to a point, but they have to respond on the spot. And we had a group of our students this week get through to the National Showcase. And one of the things I always say, because people say, as a trustee, unfortunately, I'm not involved in the judging process at all. You know, I don't break through those walls. We enter the competition. We have to sit and wait, the same as everybody else, to see if our students have been finalists. And we've been really lucky in the trust that we've had a lot of students over the last 2 years, a lot of student teams that have been finalists. But then what it boils down to is your students going in for this online meeting and presenting to these industry experts and having that really intense 15 minutes of really trying to sell their idea to those judges. And again, that was what Leonie was talking about earlier. in terms of the group, because like I say, our children that did that this year at Denby, they're 11 and 12 years old. And they're not the most confident children in the school. They're not the ones who've been presenting in assembly since they joined us. These are in some cases quite shy students. And I think one of my favourite moments was the point where someone from Spotify asked one of the children, so how would you market your app idea and get it out to a really unique audience? And like I say, this young lady turned around and basically said, well, you're Spotify, you're really, really good at what you do, and you've really cornered the market. We would like to ask you what you would suggest to us we should do in that situation. And that's what Leonie was saying about the confidence. This is the same girl who would not say hello in the first few weeks in the school, now turning around and saying things like that to Spotify, really, and in a very polite and very appropriate way. But I couldn't believe how that conversation. So I'll hand over to you, Leonie, because you know all the students much better than I do in terms of what they've got from this.
Tell us about the app.
Oh yes, tell them about the app.
Emma, I think you should tell them about the app.
Okay, it should be the children telling them about the app, but I'll tell them about the app. So the children who took part in the course as part of Year 7 this year, they came up with an app idea for an app called Bamboozle Me. And the idea was they, as part of the Apps for Good course, the children look at a website called Project Drawdown, which is actually a really, really good website that breaks down for you some of the main causes of climate change across the globe. And that's immediately a way of making it very accessible for the students to see what some of the biggest contributing factors are. And this group of students, they looked at this, they went straight past things like plastic recycling and that sort of thing, and they found that actually bamboo is a really hugely underutilized resource that is actually far more climate friendly than wood. And so they developed an app to encourage people to supplement bamboo for other products, to use it as a food source and that sort of thing as part of their diet. And they came up with the name Bamboozle Me, which I thought was brilliant. So, and that was all their own idea. So I'll hand back over to you, Leonie.
So I think for the students with the Bamboozle Me, something like Emma said, they're not the students who have been presenting throughout the whole year. They're not the students who, are first to sign up for any of these activities, but they've done it so confidently. And we've built them up slowly. So they presented to a smaller group of staff, then they've presented to our senior leadership team in preparation for presenting to the industry experts at Spotify. And it's that slow exposure that constantly pushes them out of their comfort zone that really, and I keep saying the word, but it really empowers them. So each and every student on there is a student whose ideas are fantastic, but perhaps previously they wouldn't have been confident enough to articulate them. And as well as being their head of year, I also get to teach some of them geography, and seeing the difference in their participation in lessons and their, if we're doing a paired discussion, seeing the difference in their participation in paired discussions. And I know that that's just not in one classroom. I know that's across the school. And I know that that's, distributing their ideas to other students who perhaps wouldn't have had those ideas as well. So it's having an impact on those students who have got through to the national showcase, but it's also having an impact on the classrooms that they are in, the dynamics with the students, their aspirations, but also the aspirations of those around them. And I think it's amazing having teams getting through to the finals, and it's amazing having that celebration of them. But because it's for the whole school and because it's for the whole community and across the trust, it uplifts everyone in the community, and it makes everyone realise that they can do it too. Perhaps, I think the Apps for Good course is incredible. Perhaps there are students whose interest isn't in, a climate change app. Perhaps there are students who have interest in other things who didn't feel that they could do it before, but having seen students do this, they know that they're able to, break through those barriers that are so self-limiting to students in the beliefs that they have. So it's been amazing to see the difference that those national showcases have had, not just for those students, but for all students, really.
And there are some really good ideas on there. Obviously, Bamboozle Me is, of course, the one everyone should go and vote for, 100%. But yeah, I would just like to mention some of the other ones on there. And yeah, it's got stuff. Hungry Elephants, the recipe inspiration for users of food banks. It's got Eco Mingle, where climate changes, people can connect through education. There's things in there about anxiety. There's limiting the environmental impact of festival goers. There's a clothes fixing app. There's just so many brilliant ideas. I just want to download all of these apps and have them all on my phone. So I cannot emphasize enough how good this must be for students to be able to learn these ideas and feel, you've said it 1,000 times, I know, but feel empowered enough to go out there and put their ideas out there, because it must be another difficult thing. So yes, they've developed this idea, they've developed that, but to then go and sell it with their elevator pitch, and even just to sell it to their teacher is tricky. To then, okay, I've told my teacher now I'm going to go and speak to somebody from Spotify. Exciting, but also very scary. So it's working on so many different levels, and I love it. I'm sold. Where do I sign? It's just, and yeah, I want all of these apps as well. So I'm going to say a huge thanks to everybody here. I was going to ask you which one is your favorite and which one people should vote for. I'm not going to put you in that position. But Bamboozle Me, people can vote for Bamboozle Me.
Absolutely. I don't endorse any app in particular, but Bamboozle Me would definitely appreciate your votes.
And I will also add to that as well that there's some amazing climate change app ideas from some other schools within the trust that also presented at the CADIS event that have also got through to the National Showcase final. And there's some really fantastic ideas there as well.
There are some absolutely blinding ideas. I want the clothes fixer app because my sewing is rubbish. I do it, but it's not very good. So we're just about coming to an end. I'm getting to the point where I need to turn a fan on because it's that hot in here. So yeah, it sometimes seems nice when you look at Spain. Oh, the skies are blue and it's really sunny. But yeah, it's 38 degrees still and it's almost 10 o'clock. So I'm going to go and turn a fan on, and I'm going to say a huge thank you to both of you. Do you have any last words you would like to share with us? First, Emma.
Just like I say, if you'd never heard of Apps for Good before tonight, if you've never been and had a look at their website, if it's not something you've ever considered for your school and trust, take a bit of time, go and have a look at it. I promise you it's well worth your time.
Yeah, and I think, for me, I was quite nervous to oversee the delivery of something that I hadn't taught myself. And also, it's not my subject specialism, but it was so easy and accessible for me and for the students. So if you're looking at it from a perspective of overseeing the implementation of it, I don't think it could have gone smoother, really.
Amazing. There you go. It's got everything there for you. And all you need to do to find out about it is look at the QR code. It's right there. Scan it, find it. You can also, as I mentioned before, you can go to www.appsforgood.org. Do go there. Do check out the showcase and the People's Choice Award and vote for whichever one you think is the best. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for making my return to Teachers Talk Radio be one that was so enlightening and so much fun. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Full of outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused